Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be really taking a deep dive into generative AI,
Yeah,
but with kind of a twist. We're going to be looking at it through the lens of sustainability.
right.
Um, it might not be something that's super obvious right off the bat, but training these AI models, it can have a pretty big
Mm,
carbon footprint.
yeah,
In
definitely.
fact, some of the research that we've been looking at shows that training just one large deep learning model
Oh, wow.
can create the same amount of CO2 emissions as like 5 cars
Yeah,
over their entire lifetimes.
it's a crazy stat,
Right,
right?
that's a big number.
People often think of AI as this, clean digital technology,
Yeah, for sure.
but there's a whole lot of energy that goes into it, especially when you're talking about these deep learning models.
Okay, so help me understand this a little bit. Why does AI and deep learning specifically have such a big environmental impact?
Well, it really comes down to just the massive amount of computing power
Okay.
that's needed to train these models. You're talking millions, billions of calculations happening all at the same time, nonstop,
Oh,
sometimes for weeks or even months.
really?
And all that processing,
Yeah.
that takes a lot of energy.
So it's not just the AI itself, it's the entire infrastructure behind it that's
Exact.
kind of powering it all.
Yeah.
We're talking about some serious numbers here. I think there was a study from MIT back in 2020
Yeah.
that said that training a large deep learning model can generate over 626,000 pounds of CO2,
Yeah.
that's a huge number.
That's 5 cars worth.
Yeah, it's a real wake-up call, especially as these models become more and more common.
Absolutely.
Now, I also saw something mentioned in the research about power usage effectiveness, or PUE.
Right.
Can you kind of break down what that is and why it's so important when we're evaluating, uh, you know, data center energy and efficiency?
Yeah. So PUE is basically a way to measure how efficiently a data center is using energy.
Okay.
So like a lower PUE means that more of the energy is actually going to the computing tasks rather than things like cooling systems or, just wasted energy.
So, like, choosing a data center with good PUE can actually make a real difference in terms of the overall environmental impact of
Exactly.
the AI that's being developed there.
Yeah. It's one of the many factors to consider.
That's great. Because it feels like a pretty overwhelming problem
Yeah.
when you start to kind of dig into all the energy usage behind it.
Definitely.
But the good news is that there seems to be a lot of new strategies emerging to try and make AI development more sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of exciting research happening in this
Oh,
space.
that's awesome. One thing that really caught my eye in the research you sent was this idea of leveraging existing models.
Right.
Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah. So instead of everyone training their own models from scratch, which takes a ton of energy, we can actually use pre-trained models
Okay.
that are provided by, like big cloud providers or other organizations.
So it's kind of like instead of building an entire house from scratch, you're using a blueprint
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
that someone else has already kind of laid out.
Yeah.
And you're kind of building on top of that.
Yeah. And it can save a ton of energy because you're
Yeah.
not doing all that initial training
Right.
yourself.
And then there's also this idea of fine tuning. So
Exactly.
you're taking that existing model, but then you're kind of customizing it.
Yeah. So you're taking a model that's already been trained on a massive data set,
Right.
and then you're just kind of tweaking it
Okay.
to fit your specific needs.
Now, is fine tuning, is that still a pretty computationally intensive process, or is it significantly less so than starting from scratch?
It's definitely less intensive than starting from scratch.
Okay.
It still takes some computing power, but it's way more efficient.
So what about those situations where a pre-trained model just isn't a good fit
Right.
for the task at hand? How do we kind of balance that need to, potentially train a new model with the environmental cost that comes with it?
That's a really important question, and I think it highlights the need to really carefully consider the trade-offs.
Right.
Sometimes training a new model might be the only option,
Yeah.
but we can also look at ways to make that process itself more efficient.
Okay.
One approach that's getting a lot of attention is something called prompt engineering.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around.
Yeah, so with prompt engineering, you're basically giving the AI very specific instructions
Okay.
to guide it and kind of customize its output without having to do all that heavy lifting of fine-tuning.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a lighter weight approach.
So it seems like there's a lot of different factors to weigh when you're making these decisions about what approach to take.
Definitely.
What's the best way to balance the environmental concerns with, actually accomplishing the task at hand.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right tool for the job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, one of the other things that really stood out to me in the research was this idea of recycling in the tech world.
I love that concept.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, open source models and encouraging model reusability?
Yeah, so it's really about, sharing and collaborating
Mm-hmm.
and preventing everyone from having to constantly reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Instead of everyone building their own model from scratch, we can share these models,
Right.
make them open source.
So it's kind of, yeah, it's like recycling.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically code.
Exactly. And it can have a huge positive impact on the environment.
Now, why aren't we doing this more often?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it just awareness.
Okay.
People aren't always aware of these open source models
Got it.
or the benefits of reusing them. But there are also some technical challenges.
Right.
Sometimes it can be tricky to make sure that these models are compatible with different systems
Yeah, that makes sense.
and that they're well documented and easy to use.
So it's not like a perfect solution,
Right.
but it definitely seems like a step in the right direction.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Shifting gears a bit, the research also highlights how important it is where these models are actually run.
Location, location, location. Right.
Exactly.
It matters where your cloud provider is located.
So choosing a provider that uses renewable energy sources can make a big difference.
Huge difference.
But how easy is it to actually find that information?
Yeah, it could be tough.
Are there good resources out there that can help developers make informed choices?
There are some. There are tools like electricity maps that can show you the energy mix
Okay.
for different regions and cloud providers.
Awesome.
So you could use that to make sure that you're choosing a provider that aligns with your values.
So developers actually have a lot more control
They do.
than they might realize
Yeah.
over the environmental impact of their work.
Absolutely.
Now, what about the hardware itself?
Oh,
Can the actual hardware play a role in making AI development more sustainable?
absolutely.
Okay, tell me more about that.
This is where things get really interesting. So one area that I think is really exciting is this whole idea of tiny ML and edge computing.
Okay.
Instead of sending all of our data to these massive data centers,
Yeah,
what if we could run AI right on the device itself?
right. I've heard of tiny ML, but to be honest, I don't really know much about it.
Yeah.
So you're saying instead of sending all that data to the cloud,
Yeah,
we're basically bringing the AI to the data.
exactly. And it's all made possible by these tiny little low power microcontrollers.
Okay.
They're not as powerful as like your computer's processor,
Right.
but they're incredibly energy efficient.
So you're doing the AI work locally
Yeah.
on these small devices, which
Yeah.
means less data transfer,
Right.
less reliance on those data centers,
Exactly.
which ultimately means a smaller carbon footprint.
Exactly.
But, I mean, there have to be some trade-offs there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, are we sacrificing accuracy for energy efficiency?
So, tiny ML, it's not a magic bullet.
Okay.
There are definitely trade-offs.
Yeah.
You might have to sacrifice some accuracy or complexity in the model to get it to run on a low-power device.
Okay.
And there are limitations to the types of tasks these devices can handle.
Got it.
But for a lot of applications, it's a brilliant solution.
Yeah.
And it opens up this whole world of possibilities for, deploying AI in places where energy consumption is a major concern.
Right, like if you have limited power.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it really is about choosing the right tool for the job, right?
Right.
You have to think about the task,
Absolutely.
but also the environmental impact.
Yep.
That's really interesting. Now, we were talking about hardware. The research also mentioned some specialized hardware that's designed for AI tasks.
Oh, yeah.
Like TPUs and GPUs. Can you explain what those are and how they kind of fit into this whole sustainability picture?
Yeah, so TPUs, which stands for Tensor Processing Unit,
Okay.
and GPUs, which stands for Graphics Processing Unit.
Got it.
These are basically specialized chips
Okay.
that are designed for the kind of complex parallel processing that AI models require.
Okay.
And they're just way more efficient than traditional CPUs
Okay.
for these types of tasks.
So they can process the same amount of data
Yeah,
faster.
Yeah.
Using less power.
exactly.
Okay, so that's a win for sustainability.
Big win. Yeah,
It seems like hardware is playing a much bigger role
it is. Yeah.
in sustainable AI than I initially thought.
Yeah, for sure.
What about the software side of things?
Right.
Are there things that we can do to kind of optimize the models themselves
Yeah,
to make
absolutely.
them more efficient?
there are a bunch of different techniques like quantization, pruning, compression, all these fancy terms.
Right.
But basically, they're all about making models leaner and more efficient.
So it's like optimizing code,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
for AI models.
Exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
So you can kind of slim down the model, make it less energy hungry
Okay.
without sacrificing too much performance.
And this kind of brings us back to something we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
this idea of conscious choices
Right, exactly.
in AI development.
It's not just about, choosing the right hardware or software.
Right.
It's about, thinking at the entire life cycle of the AI,
Yeah.
from development to deployment.
Okay.
We need to be asking ourselves questions like, do we really need to use the biggest, most complex model?
Right.
Could we achieve similar results with a smaller, more efficient model?
Yeah.
Can we leverage existing models instead of training our own?
So it's about taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture,
Yeah.
really thinking through all the different options.
Yeah. Sustainability by design.
I love that.
We need to start thinking about sustainability as a core part of the AI development process.
Yeah.
Not just something we tack on at the end.
Right, like an afterthought.
Exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like a real shift in mindset is needed.
It does. Yeah.
Speaking of shifting mindsets, I wanted to kind of circle back to this idea of AI for good
Yes.
that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
It seems like there's such a huge opportunity to use AI to actually help us tackle some of these environmental challenges.
Absolutely. I mean, AI can help us monitor carbon emissions,
Right.
optimize energy grids,
Yeah.
develop sustainable materials, so many different things.
It's not just about using AI to fix problems. It's about
Yeah.
developing and deploying it in a way that minimizes its own impact, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's about making the whole process more sustainable.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Sustainable AI leads to more sustainable practices, which in turn leads to even more sustainable AI.
Exactly.
I'm starting to feel a little bit optimistic about the future here.
Yeah. There's a lot to be optimistic about.
Now, speaking of the future, one thing that I saw mentioned in the research was a new energy optimization framework called Zeus
Oh, yeah, Zeus.
that claims to be able to reduce energy usage by 75%
Wow.
without needing any new hardware.
That's amazing.
Is this something that you're familiar with at all?
Yeah, I've been following the development of Zeus pretty closely. It's a really fascinating approach.
Yeah.
They're basically using machine learning to dynamically optimize the energy consumption across different parts of the AI system.
Wow.
So the early results look really promising.
Yeah.
And if it can live up to its potential, it could really be a game changer.
75%. That's huge.
It is, yeah.
Do you think this is the future of sustainable AI, this kind of innovation?
I think it's definitely a major step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But, it's not just about these big revolutionary breakthroughs.
Okay.
It's also about all the small, everyday choices that developers and data scientists and even users of AI can make.
Right.
It's about a collective shift in mindset,
Right.
where we start to see sustainability not as a burden,
Yeah.
but as an integral part of the AI development process.
I love that. It really feels like we're on the cusp of a real paradigm shift
Is
in how we think about and develop AI.
I think so, yeah.
But, with all this talk about sustainability,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what about all those cutting edge areas of AI that
Right,
we
yeah.
hear so much about, like federated learning, differential privacy? Do those have a role to play in sustainable AI?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, they could be key to unlocking even greater sustainability in the future.
Okay.
Federated learning, for example,
Yeah.
allows us to train AI models on decentralized data sets
Okay.
without having to move the data around.
So you're reducing the environmental impact
Uh,
of like moving all those massive data sets.
Yeah, you're cutting down on data transfer, storage, all of that.
And you're also potentially addressing some privacy concerns by keeping the data localized.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a win-win.
And then you have differential privacy, which adds noise to the data to protect sensitive information
Exactly.
while still enabling useful analysis.
Yeah, so you can still get insights from the data,
Okay.
but you're doing it in a way that protects people's privacy.
So it's about finding ways to leverage AI for good,
Yeah.
but also protect individual privacy.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
It sounds like a balancing act.
It is, yeah.
And it also kind of highlights the fact that sustainable AI isn't just about reducing energy consumption.
Right.
It's about making sure that AI is used ethically
Exactly.
and responsibly
Yeah.
in a way that benefits both people and the planet.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It feels like we're just at the beginning of this
Sure.
much larger conversation
Mhm.
about the future of AI
Absolutely.
and its role in a sustainable world.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be working in this field.
It really is. And speaking of conversation, I'd love to hear from our listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
What are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, what questions do you have? Yeah, we'd love to hear your perspectives.
Yeah, jump into the conversation, share your thoughts with us on social media. This is a topic that really needs all of us at the table.
For sure.
As we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I keep coming back to this idea of awareness, as developers,
Yeah.
as data scientists, as users of AI.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be aware of the impact that our choices are having.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every choice we make, it matters.
And it really does. Even the small ones,
Yeah.
they can have a ripple effect.
So let's make those choices count.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of sustainable AI.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you learned something new today and that you're feeling inspired
Yeah.
to maybe join this conversation, think about your own role in all of this.
Yeah, keep learning, keep asking questions.
Definitely keep pushing the boundaries
Yeah.
of what's possible with AI, but let's do it in a way that's sustainable.
Right. We've got one planet.
Yeah, that's right. So until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries.
And make those choices count.
That's it for us. We'll see you next time.